The Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with quiet conversations. Representatives from dozens of worlds sat in their floating seats, waiting for the meeting to begin. The crystalline Veltari sparkled like living diamonds, while the gas-dwelling Nethros floated in their bubble suits. Each species looked important and powerful in their own way. At the far edge of the hall sat High Park, the human representative. Her simple black suit looked plain next to the fancy clothes and natural beauty of the other aliens. Most of them ignored her completely. To them, she was just another primitive from a backward world. Ambassador Velnash raised one of his crystal arms. His voice rang out like wind chimes. "We must discuss the human application again," he said. "They have been asking to join our council for 20 years now." Several aliens made sounds of annoyance. A Nethros representative floated forward in his gas bubble. "Why do we keep discussing this? They have not even left their star system properly. They have one small space station and a few mining ships in their asteroid belt. Nothing more." Velnash nodded his sparkling head. "Exactly. They refuse to share their technology specifications with us. How can we trust them if they will not show us what they have built?" Hai stood up slowly. "We have shared what we can. Our technology is still developing. We need more time." This made several aliens laugh. A reptilian being from the Saros Empire hissed softly. "More time? You have had 300 years since you discovered faster-than-light travel. Most species join the galaxy within 50 years. We prefer to be careful," Hai said calmly. Velnash's crystal body flashed with colors that meant he was amused. "Careful? Or perhaps you simply have nothing worth sharing. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are basic. Your population is tiny compared to real galactic powers." The meeting continued like this for 2 hours. The aliens talked about trade routes and territory disputes while barely looking at Hai. When they finally voted on humanity's application, the result was the same as always. Denied. Again, Hai gathered her papers and left the hall. She walked through the beautiful crystal corridors of the council station, past gardens filled with plants from 1,000 worlds. Everything here was designed to show how advanced and powerful the galactic civilizations were. She reached her small ship and sat in the pilot's seat. The communication screen lit up with an encrypted message from Earth. She typed in her password and waited for the message to decode. The face of J. Kim appeared on the screen. He looked tired but excited. Behind him, she could see the inside of what looked like a construction facility. "How did the meeting go?" Jay asked. "Same as always," I said. "They think we are too primitive to join them." Velnash made jokes about our basic technology again. Jay smiled. "Good. The longer they think that, the better. How is the project going?" Jay turned to look at something off-screen. "We finished Ring Section 7 yesterday. That makes 43 sections complete. Only 7 more to go." Hai felt a chill of excitement. 50 ring sections. "I still can hardly believe it." "Believe it," Jay said. 30 years of work and we are almost done. The aliens have no idea what we have been building out here." Far away from the council station, deep in the asteroid belt of the human solar system, massive shapes moved in the darkness. They were too big to be ships and too complex to be natural. Giant metal structures floated between the asteroids, connected by energy bridges that pulsed with soft blue light. Inside one of the largest structures, thousands of humans worked in perfect silence. They wore special suits that blocked all radio signals. Every tool they used was designed to make no electromagnetic noise. The aliens had sensors throughout the galaxy, but they could not detect what they could not hear. Jay walked through the construction bay, checking on the work. Above him, a piece of machinery larger than a city block was being installed into the ring structure. The ring itself was so massive that he could not see both sides of it at the same time, even from the center. A young engineer named Da Li ran up to him. "Sir, we have a problem with ring section 12. The power coupling is not connecting properly." Jay followed her to a control station. On the screen, he could see technical readings that made no sense to most people. But Jay had been working on this project since he was young. Now his hair was gray, but his eyes were still sharp. "The alignment is off by 3 millimeters, he said. "Use the micro-adjusters to fix it." Da nodded and sent the instructions to the work crew. Within minutes, the readings changed to show everything was working correctly. "Sir," Da said quietly, "do you really think the aliens will never find out about this?" Jay looked out through the transparent metal wall of the control room. Outside, he could see dozens of other ring sections under construction. Each one was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid. From the outside, they looked like normal space rocks, but inside they contained technology that no alien species had ever imagined. "They think they know everything about us," Jay said. "They think we are simple and weak. That is exactly what we want them to think." In another part of the ring construction, teams of scientists worked on projects that would have amazed the Galactic Council. They had spent decades studying every alien species they could find. They knew how each alien technology worked, what its weaknesses were, and how to counter it. But the aliens knew almost nothing about human technology. Every time alien visitors came to the solar system, they were shown only the simple space station near Earth. They were told that humans were still learning how to build basic spacecraft. None of them ever looked carefully at the asteroid belt. Why would they? It was just a bunch of space rocks. Nothing important ever happened in asteroid belts. The truth was that humans had been strip mining the asteroids for 30 years. They had taken apart hundreds of space rocks and used the metal to build something incredible. Something that would change the galaxy forever. But first, they had to finish building it, and they had to keep it secret until the right time came. That time was coming soon, though none of them knew it yet. In the deep space between galaxies, something dark and hungry was moving toward them. Something that had destroyed civilizations before, something that the Galactic Council was not prepared to face. When that threat arrived, the galaxy would learn what humans had really been building in the quiet darkness of their asteroid belt. They would learn that sometimes the most dangerous species were the ones that worked in silence. Jay looked at the progress reports one more time before heading home. 7 more ring sections to complete, 7 more pieces of humanity's greatest creation. Then they would be ready for whatever came next. The emergency alarm rang through every council ship in the galaxy. Red lights flashed in command centers from the crystal cities of Veltar to the floating gas platforms of Nethros space. Something terrible had appeared at the edge of the galaxy, and it was moving fast. Fleet Admiral Velnash stood in his crystal command ship, watching the sensor readings with growing fear. The objects on his screen were massive, bigger than any ships his people had ever built. But they were not ships at all. They were alive. "How many of them are there?" he asked his sensor officer. "We count over 3,000 bioships, sir. Each one is at least 10 kilometers long. Some are much bigger." Velnash felt his crystal body grow cold. He had heard stories about things like this, ancient legends passed down from the oldest species in the galaxy, but he had never believed they were real. The Devourer swarm had returned. The bioships looked like giant insects made of black metal and living flesh. They moved through space like a cloud of death, consuming everything in their path. When they reached a star system, they would eat the planets, the moons, even the star itself. They would grow stronger with each meal, making more ships, becoming more dangerous. The first star system they hit was on the Outer Rim, a peaceful world called Haven's Rest, where a species of gentle plant beings had lived for thousands of years. The plant beings sent out desperate messages for help before their signals went silent forever. The Galactic Council assembled their combined fleet as fast as they could. Ships from every major species rushed to meet the threat. The Veltari brought their crystal battleships that could cut through anything. The Nethros brought their gas-powered vessels that could phase in and out of normal space. The Saros Empire sent their heavy assault ships with the strongest weapons in the galaxy. It was the largest fleet ever assembled. Over 50,000 ships from 100 different worlds, all working together to stop the Devourer swarm. They were completely destroyed in less than 6 hours. The bioships had an ability that no one expected. They could adapt. When the Veltari crystal weapons hit them, the bioship's skin changed to reflect the energy back. When the Nethros tried to phase attack them, the bioships learned to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Every weapon the galaxy used against them only made them stronger. The survivors limped back to council space with terrible news. The Devourer swarm was unstoppable. It was learning from every battle, becoming immune to every weapon. Within months, it would reach the core worlds where billions of beings lived. Panic spread through the galaxy. Some species tried to run. Others prepared for a final battle they knew they could not win. The proud civilizations that had ruled space for thousands of years suddenly felt very small and helpless. In his crystal tower on Veltar Prime, Ambassador Velnash worked desperately to find a solution. He sent messages to every world he could think of, begging for new ideas, new weapons, anything that might help. Then he remembered the humans. The idea was almost insulting. The primitive species from the edge of known space, the ones who could barely build a proper spaceship. But desperate times called for desperate measures. Maybe they could at least offer their solar system as a hiding place for refugees. The message Velnash sent to Earth was simple. Devourer swarm approaching. Combined galactic fleet destroyed. Request assistance for refugee placement. Please respond immediately. The answer came back within hours. It was not from the human representative High Park. It was from someone called Fleet Admiral Min Choi. Velnash had never heard of this person before. Council ships are welcome at coordinates 247.8 by 156.2 by 88.9. Bring everyone you can. Hurry. Velnash looked at the coordinates with confusion. They were not in human space. They were in empty space between star systems far from any known worlds. Why would the humans want them to go there? But with the Devourer swarm getting closer every day, the Council had no choice. They loaded as many civilians as they could onto every available ship and headed for the human coordinates. What they found there changed everything they thought they knew about the, galaxy. The first thing they saw was a ring of light stretching across space. It was enormous. Bigger than any planet, bigger than most star systems. As their ships got closer, they realized it was not natural. It was a structure built by intelligent beings. But who could build something this massive? Then they saw the human fleet. Thousands of ships moved in perfect formation around the giant ring structure. But these were not the simple, slow vessels the Council had seen before. These ships were sleek and powerful, with designs unlike anything in galactic records. They moved with a precision that spoke of advanced computer systems and decades of training. Fleet Admiral Min Choi's voice came over the communication system. Welcome to Defense Platform Alpha. Please follow our guide ships to your assigned sectors. We have prepared accommodations for 12 million refugees. Velnash could barely speak. Defense Platform Alpha? What is this place? One of our installations, Min said calmly. We have been preparing for this day for 30 years. As the alien ships approached the massive ring, they could see it was not just one structure. It was dozens of ring sections connected by energy bridges that sparkled with power. Each section was large enough to hold an entire civilization. Inside the transparent walls, they could see cities, forests, lakes, even artificial skies. But most amazing of all were the weapons. The ring sections were covered with devices that no alien had ever seen before. Energy projectors that could reach across star systems. Manufacturing bays that were already building new ships even as they watched. Defense systems that made the strongest Council warships look like toys. A Nethros commander floated up to Velnash in his gas bubble. His voice was full of shock. The humans built this? How is this possible? Our sensor reports said they had almost no technology. Velnash was thinking the same thing. For decades, the humans had seemed like a backward species. They refused to share their technology, stayed in their own star system, and built nothing impressive. The Council had dismissed them as primitives who were not worth attention. Now he was looking at technology that was decades ahead of anything the galaxy had ever produced. Min Choi's image appeared on their communication screens. She was a middle-aged human with calm, intelligent eyes. Behind her, they could see a command center filled with displays showing the entire galaxy. I know you have questions, she said, but right now we need to focus on the Devourer swarm. They will be here soon and we need to be ready. Ready? Velnash managed to ask. You think you can fight them? Our entire combined fleet was destroyed in hours. Min smiled, but there was no humor in it. Your fleet was not prepared for an adaptive enemy. We have been preparing for exactly this threat for 30 years. We know how to fight them. On the displays behind her, Velnash could see something that made his crystal body freeze with amazement. The ring structure was not alone. All across the galaxy, other installations were powering up. Hidden bases that had been invisible to Council sensors were revealing themselves. A network of human defenses that spanned thousands of light years. The primitive species that the Council had ignored had quietly built the most advanced defense system in galactic history. And now, as the Devourer swarm approached, the galaxy was about to learn what humans could really do when they put their minds to it. Min looked directly at Velnash through the screen. Get your people settled in the refugee areas. The real fight is about to begin. The Devourer swarm arrived 3 days later, like a black cloud of death spreading across the stars. From Defense Platform Alpha, the alien refugees watched in terror as thousands of bioships moved toward them. Each ship pulsed with dark energy, hungry for new worlds to consume. In the command center, Wuhan stood before a massive display showing the entire battlefield. He was the chief systems coordinator, and he had trained for this moment his entire life. Around him, hundreds of human technicians worked at their stations with calm efficiency. Enemy swarm detected at long range, reported one operator. Estimated 3,200 bioships, various sizes. Wu nodded. Begin Phase 1. Activate all ring sections. Throughout the massive defense platform, systems that had been sleeping for years suddenly came alive. The ring sections that had looked like peaceful habitats began to transform. Walls slid away to reveal weapon systems beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Manufacturing bays opened up, showing assembly lines that stretched for kilometers. Captain A. Jin sat in the cockpit of her fighter ship, waiting for the launch order. Her ship was nothing like the simple human vessels the aliens had seen before. It was sleek and fast, covered with armor that could change its properties in real time. Most importantly, it was modular. Different parts could separate and recombine depending on what the battle required. All pilots, this is command, came Wu's voice over the communication system. Remember your training. These bioships adapt to whatever we use against them. Do not use the same attack twice. Keep changing your tactics. A-Jin smiled. The humans had studied every piece of information they could find about the Devourer swarm. Ancient records from species that had faced them before. Sensor data from the recent battle where the Council fleet was destroyed. They knew exactly how the bioships worked. The key was adaptation. The bioships learned from each attack and became immune to it, but they could only adapt to attacks they had already seen. If the humans kept changing their methods, the bioships would never be able to catch up. Launch Phase 1 fighters, Wu commanded. Thousands of human ships poured out of the ring sections, but these were not ordinary fighters. As soon as they cleared the launch bays, they began to change shape. Wings folded and unfolded, weapon systems rotated and reconfigured. Some ships split into multiple smaller craft, while others combined to form larger vessels. The alien refugees watched in amazement. They had never seen anything like this. Ships that could change their entire design in the middle of a battle. The first wave of human fighters met the Devourer swarm at the edge of the star system. A-Jin led her squadron directly at a cluster of bioships, each one the size of a small moon. Her targeting computer locked onto the nearest enemy. Fire Pattern Alpha, she called to her squadron. Her ship launched a stream of energy projectiles that moved in a complex spiral pattern. The bioship's living armor tried to adapt, but before it could figure out the pattern, A-Jin had already switched to a completely different type of weapon. Fire Pattern Beta, she commanded. This time her ship released a cloud of small drones that attacked the bioship from all sides. The bioship's defenses were still trying to counter the energy spiral when the drone swarm hit it from behind. All around her, other human pilots were doing the same thing. Each one used a different attack method, and all of them kept changing their tactics every few seconds. The bioships, which had easily adapted to the predictable Council weapons, found themselves unable to keep up with the constantly changing human strategies. But the real surprise was yet to come. Back on Defense Platform Alpha, Sun Yun was watching the battle from her laboratory. She was a biotechnology specialist who had spent years studying samples of Devourer biomaterial recovered from ancient battlefields. She knew more about how the bioships worked than anyone alive. "Wu," she called over the communication system. "The bioships are starting to adapt to our changing tactics. They are learning faster than we expected." "How long do we have?" Wu asked. "Maybe 30 minutes before they figure out how to counter our modular ships." Wu smiled. "That's longer than we need." Begin Phase 2. The ring sections of Defense Platform Alpha began to move. What the aliens had thought was a single massive structure was actually dozens of separate pieces that could operate independently. The ring sections separated and spread out across the battlefield, each one becoming its own mobile fortress. From inside each ring section, New ships began to launch. But these were not fighters. They were construction vessels, moving incredibly fast toward the heart of the Devourer swarm. The bioships tried to intercept them, but the construction vessels had a different mission. Instead of attacking the bioships, they began building things. In the middle of the battle, with enemy fire all around them, human construction crews assembled massive structures in space. Within minutes, they had built a network of energy collectors that began draining power from the bioships themselves. The Devourer swarm, which was used to consuming energy from their enemies, found themselves being consumed instead. "Impossible," whispered Velnash as he watched from the refugee area. "They are building new weapons in the middle of a battle." But the humans were not done yet. As the bioships weakened, human marines began boarding them. These were not ordinary soldiers. They wore special suits that could adapt to any environment, and they carried weapons designed specifically to fight inside living ships. The bioships had never faced an enemy that tried to capture them instead of destroying them. Their adaptation systems were designed to counter external attacks, not internal invasions. Inside the largest bioship, a human team led by a marine named Bo-Na fought their way to the control center. The bioship's immune system tried to stop them, but the human suits adapted faster than the ship could respond. "Target acquired," Bo-Na reported as her team reached a massive organic brain at the center of the ship. Beginning extraction. Instead of destroying the bioship's brain, the humans carefully removed it and carried it back to their ships. Within hours, they had captured the control centers of dozens of bioships. Back in her laboratory, Sun Yun began studying the captured bioship brains immediately. The information she learned was incredible. The bioships were not just weapons. They were a form of life that had been traveling between galaxies for millions of years, consuming everything they found. But now that the humans had captured their control systems, they could do something that no species had ever tried before. They could communicate with the Devourer swarm. "Woo!" Sun called excitedly. "I think I can talk to them." "Talk to them?" Wu asked. "You mean negotiate?" "Maybe. These bioships are not evil. They are just hungry. They consume other life because that is the only way they know how to survive. But what if we could teach them a different way?" As the battle continued, Sun worked frantically to decode the bioship communication system. The fighting was still going on all around them, but she was focused on something more important than winning a battle. She was trying to find a way to end the war forever. The aliens watching from Defense Platform Alpha could hardly believe what they were seeing. The humans were not just defeating the Devourer swarm, they were trying to save them. It was a level of strategic thinking that no species in the galaxy had ever imagined. Instead of just building bigger weapons, the humans had built a completely new way of approaching conflict, and it was working. The bioships, confused by the humans' unexpected tactics, began to slow their attack. For the first time in their long history, they had encountered a species that fought not just to destroy but to understand. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had been preparing for much more than just a battle. They had been preparing to change everything. As the battle with the Devourer swarm continued, Tay Lim sat in a hidden command center deep inside one of the ring sections. He was the strategic coordinator who had planned humanity's 30-year preparation for this exact moment. Around him, displays showed not just the current battle, but the entire galaxy and all the hidden human installations scattered across it. The alien refugees had been amazed by Defense Platform Alpha, but they had no idea how big the human network really was. What they were seeing was just one small part of humanity's true capabilities. Tay looked at a message that had just arrived from a station near the galactic core. It was from Bo-Na, the communications specialist who managed the secret network of human observers. "Tay," she reported, "all sleeper stations are now active. We have eyes on every major alien world. The Council species still have no idea we have been watching them for decades." Tay nodded. It was time to tell the galaxy the truth about what humans had really been doing, while the aliens dismissed them as primitives. 50 years earlier, when humans first made contact with galactic civilization, they had been genuinely primitive. Their ships were slow, their weapons were basic, and their technology was thousands of years behind the advanced alien species. But humanity had one advantage that the aliens did not understand. They were very, very good at learning from history. The first human explorers had found something that changed everything. On a dead world at the edge of known space, they discovered the ruins of an ancient civilization. The ruins told a story that terrified the human scientists who studied them. The galaxy had been destroyed before, not once but many times over millions of years. Again and again, advanced civilizations had grown powerful and spread across the stars. And again, something had come from outside the galaxy to consume everything they had built. The devourer swarm was not a new threat. It was an ancient cycle that repeated every few million years. The current galactic civilizations were just the latest in a long line of species that had grown up, reached for the stars, and then been consumed by the dark things that lived between galaxies. But the humans had found something else in those ruins. Hidden deep in the ancient archives were the stories of species that had survived. Not many, but a few. The ones that had learned to prepare instead of just expand. Young Tae Lim had been one of the scientists studying those ancient records. He was just 25 years old when he proposed the plan that would shape humanity's next 3 decades. "We cannot compete with the aliens in expansion," he had told the Earth government. "They have thousands of years head start on us. But we can compete in preparation. We can get ready for the threats they do not even know are coming." The plan was simple but required incredible patience. While the alien species focused on growing their empires, humans would focus on building defenses. They would study every alien technology they could find. They would learn from every species' strengths and weaknesses, and they would prepare for the day when something terrible would come from the dark. Most importantly, they would do all of this in secret. The aliens saw humans as primitive, and that was exactly what humans wanted them to see. As long as the galaxy ignored humanity, humans could work without interference. The asteroid belt had been perfect for their needs. Hundreds of large asteroids that could be hollowed out and turned into construction facilities. From the outside, they still looked like normal space rocks. But inside, they contained the most advanced manufacturing centers the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships had spread out across the galaxy in secret, always staying hidden, always watching. They established tiny outposts in empty star systems. They built listening stations near alien worlds. They studied alien technology and learned how to build better versions of everything. The aliens never noticed because they were not looking for humans outside of human space. Why would they? Humans were primitive. Humans stayed home. Humans were not important enough to worry about. While the aliens expanded their territories and fought their political wars, humans mapped every star system, studied every species, and planned for every possible threat. When the first reports of the devourer swarm came in from the galactic edge, Tae was not surprised. He had been expecting this day for 30 years. "All stations, this is Central Command," Tae said into his communication system. "Begin revealing Phase 1 installations." Across the galaxy, human outposts that had been hidden for decades suddenly activated. Space stations appeared where there had been empty space. Defense platforms rose from behind dead moons. Manufacturing centers that had been disguised as asteroids opened up to reveal massive production lines. The aliens watching these reveals were shocked. How had humans built all of this without anyone noticing? The answer was simple. They had been very careful, very patient, and very quiet. On the Veltari homeworld, a crystalline structure that had been orbiting their moon for 20 years suddenly revealed itself to be a human observation post. It had been collecting data about Veltari technology and society all this time. Completely unnoticed, near the Nethros gas platforms, a space station that the gas dwellers had thought was a natural formation turned out to be a human listening post. It had been recording their communications and studying their culture for decades. Every major species in the galaxy discovered that humans had been watching them, learning from them and preparing to protect them, all without their knowledge. But the most shocking revelation was still to come. Jinseo, the weapons engineer who had designed humanity's adaptive arsenal, was watching the battle data from the front lines. The modular human ships were performing exactly as planned. But now it was time to reveal the real secret weapon. "Tae," she reported, "the bioships are starting to adapt to our modular systems faster than expected. Permission to activate the archive weapons?" Tae hesitated. The archive weapons were humanity's most secret project. They were based on technology recovered from those ancient ruins, combined with everything humans had learned about galactic civilizations. Once they were revealed, there would be no more secrets. The galaxy would know exactly how advanced humans really were. "Permission granted," Tay said finally. Full reveal. From hidden bays throughout the human fleet, new ships began to emerge. These were not modular fighters or construction vessels. These were warships built with technology that seemed to come from the future itself. The ships moved without engines, traveled faster than light without jump drives, and fired weapons that could reshape matter at the atomic level. They were built using principles that combined the best technology from dozens of extinct civilizations. Improved by human engineering and powered by energy sources the current galaxy had never imagined. But even more amazing was what happened next. Instead of using these incredible weapons to destroy the Devourer swarm, the humans did something that no species in galactic history had ever attempted. They began to heal. The archive technology included something that the ancient civilizations had discovered but never had time to use. A way to break the cycle of destruction that had consumed galaxy after galaxy for millions of years. The Devourer swarm was not evil. They were victims. Long ago, they had been a normal species like any other. But they had been changed by something even darker, something that turned them into endless consumers. The ancient records showed how to reverse that change, how to free them from their terrible hunger. As the human ships surrounded the bioships with healing energy instead of destructive fire, something incredible happened. The bioships began to remember what they had been before they became devourers, and for the first time in millions of years, they stopped being hungry. The aliens watching from Defense Platform Alpha could barely understand what they were seeing. The humans had not just defeated the galaxy's greatest threat. They had saved it, but this was only the beginning. As Tay looked at his displays showing the full extent of the human network, he knew that the galaxy was about to change in ways that no one could imagine. The age of expansion was over. The age of preparation had begun. 6 months after the Devourer swarm was healed, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The bioships that had once consumed entire star systems now floated peacefully in space, their hunger replaced by curiosity about the universe around them. They had remembered their true nature, and were grateful to the humans who had freed them from millions of years of suffering. In the rebuilt council chambers, Hyunko sat where High Park had once sat alone and ignored. But now, as the new human representative, Hyun was at the center of every discussion. The other alien delegates looked at him with a mixture of respect, fear, and wonder. The old council chambers had been too small and too focused on the inner worlds. The new chambers were built inside one of humanity's ring platforms, with space for thousands of representatives from species across the galaxy. Even the former Devourer bioships had delegates now, their living ships serving as unique embassies. Ambassador Velnash was still alive, though his crystal body seemed dimmer than before. The shock of learning how wrong he had been about humans had changed him deeply. He stood to address the assembly, his voice no longer carrying the arrogance it once had. "We have called this meeting to discuss the new reality," Velnash said. "The humans have shared with us technology that is centuries ahead of our own. They have shown us defensive capabilities that we never imagined possible. Most importantly, they have demonstrated a way of thinking that could protect our galaxy from future threats." Hyun stood up, his simple human clothing looking perfectly appropriate in a chamber where function now mattered more than appearance. "We want to be clear about something. We are not here to rule the galaxy. We are here to help prepare it." This was the new human message. Not conquest, not expansion, but preparation. The ring platforms that had once been weapons of war were being converted into centers of learning and cooperation. The hidden human installations across the galaxy were being revealed and shared with other species. Unshi, the lead architect of the reconstruction efforts, had spent months working with alien engineers to understand how human technology could be adapted for other species. The modular systems that had proven so effective against the Devourer swarm were being modified to help alien civilizations build their own defenses. The key, unexplained to a gathering of alien scientists, is not to build bigger weapons. The key is to build smarter systems that can adapt to any threat. On the Veltari homeworld, crystal cities were being rebuilt with human-designed adaptive architectures. If another threat came from space, the cities could reshape themselves into defensive fortresses. If the threat was environmental, they could become closed habitats. The buildings themselves could change their function based on what was needed. The Nethros gas platforms were being upgraded with modular components that could be reconfigured in minutes instead of years. Their floating cities could now combine into larger structures or separate into smaller ones depending on the situation. Even the warlike Sauros Empire was embracing the new philosophy. Instead of building larger and more destructive weapons, they were learning to build defensive systems that could protect not just themselves, but their neighbors as well. The transformation was not just technological. The humans had introduced something even more revolutionary: the concept of long-term thinking. Li Jun, the new diplomatic liaison, worked with alien governments to help them plan not just for the next few years, but for the next few centuries. The old galactic civilizations had grown up thinking in terms of expansion and competition. Now they were learning to think in terms of preparation and cooperation. The ancient records show us that threats to the galaxy come in cycles, Li explained to a gathering of alien leaders. Some cycles are short, just a few thousand years. Others are very long, millions of years. If we want to survive, we need to prepare for all of them. This was the hardest lesson for the aliens to learn. Most species thought in terms of their own lifespans, maybe a few generations at most. But humans were teaching them to think in terms of geological time, to build systems that could protect the galaxy for millions of years into the future. The former Devourer bioships were helping with this effort. Their ancient memories contained information about threats that the current galaxy had never faced. They spoke of dark entities that existed between dimensions, of cosmic storms that could destroy entire sectors, of changes in the universe itself that could make entire types of life impossible. Working together, the humans and the healed bioships began to prepare for threats that would not arrive for thousands of years. They built early warning systems that could detect problems developing in other galaxies. They created defensive technologies that could protect against attacks that had not been invented yet, but perhaps the most important change was in how species related to each other. The old Galactic Council had been based on power and prestige. The biggest, strongest species made the decisions, while smaller ones were ignored or dismissed. The humans had shown how dangerous this approach could be. While the powerful species were focused on their own importance, they had missed the real threats developing around them. The new galactic government was based on contribution rather than strength. Species were valued not for how much territory they controlled or how advanced their weapons were, but for what they could offer to the common defense. The tiny species that the old council had ignored often turned out to have unique knowledge or abilities that were incredibly valuable. The plant beings from Haven's Rest, who had been among the first victims of the Devourer swarm, were brought back to life using bioship healing technology. Their deep understanding of ecological systems proved essential for creating sustainable defenses that could last for millions of years. A species of small, furry creatures who had never been allowed to speak in the old council turned out to have natural abilities that could detect dimensional threats centuries before they arrived. They became the foundation of the galaxy's early warning system. Even individual bioships, each one containing the memories of billions of consumed civilizations, became valuable contributors to galactic knowledge. They helped reconstruct lost technologies and warned about mistakes that had led to extinctions in the past. As Hyun looked around the new council chambers, he thought about how much had changed. A year ago, humans had been dismissed as primitives who were not worth the galaxy's attention. Now they were at the center of the greatest cooperative effort in galactic history. But Hyun also knew that this was just the beginning. The ancient records spoke of threats that were far worse than the Devourer swarm, things that existed in the spaces between realities, that fed on the structure of the universe itself. The galaxy would need to become much stronger and much smarter if it wanted to survive what was coming. The good news was that they were no longer facing these threats alone. Every species in the galaxy was now working together, sharing their knowledge and abilities. The competitive, expansion-focused civilizations of the past were becoming a unified, preparation-focused galactic community. And at the center of it all were the ring platforms, the giants that humans had built in silence. They were no longer weapons of war, but symbols of what could be achieved when a species thought beyond its own immediate needs. Jae Kim, now very old but still sharp, stood on an observation deck of Defense Platform Alpha, looking out at the stars. Around him, construction continued as new ring sections were added to the platform. But these were not weapons. They were research facilities, manufacturing centers, and homes for the millions of beings who now worked together to protect the galaxy. A young human engineer named Dali, who had worked with Jay during the secret construction years, joined him at the observation window. "Do you think we will be ready for the next threat?" she asked. Jay smiled. "We are more ready than the galaxy has ever been. But more importantly, we have learned how to get ready. When the next threat comes, we will not face it as separate species fighting alone. We will face it as one galaxy prepared for anything." Outside the window, the stars shone peacefully. But Jay knew that somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, other threats were moving toward them. Ancient things that had destroyed countless civilizations before. This time, though, they would find something they had never encountered before. A galaxy that had learned to prepare, to cooperate, and to think beyond the immediate future. The giants that humans had built in silence had awakened something more powerful than any weapon. They had awakened the galaxy's ability to work together, and that, Jay knew, was humanity's greatest gift to the stars.